Good morning, y'all. How you doing? Now, I'm going to admit, I am at this time, I'm just not finding it hard to believe that this COVID-19 is no more than a bad flu year. People check into the hospital, are sick with the flu or worse, and they die from the flu. And they call it the coronavirus, which is the flu. And my opinion could change. It could. It sure could. But from observation, well, it's just for instance, fellas at work. A couple of them have gotten sick, and they've gotten over it in 3 or 4 days, and they're back to repairing water mains. And they got diagnosed with the flu. But these places that have tests, well, they're calling it the coronavirus. I go out in everyday life, and I know of no one that is scared except from what they hear on that carnal contaminant called the TV, the news. And, you know, I'm practicing the social distancing the best that I can because I haven't gathered all my facts if this is authentic, this flu, or if it's just a political worldwide propaganda machine. But a slave servant to Jesus Christ is not to fear what can inconvenience or fear what can cause pain to our physical body. You will easily identify a believer in Jesus in such a time as this boogeyman virus. Well, they'll not be in fear. They'll be counseling you to not be scared, especially if something you can't see. They won't be pacing the grocery store aisles, speed walking, knocking you over. They'll be walking in the gate of the Spirit, walking normal. And they'll surely continue with proper manners. Like, I'll tell you one thing, for holding the door for you. These creatures today are scared to touch the door. I walked in the store the other day. Wasn't paying attention, walked right in, and door swung right in my face, about broke my nose. A believer in Jesus has not one thing to fear but God Himself. And if we desire, well, let's just say, some people say, I just want to go home, or some say, I can't wait till Christ returns. Well, if that's the stance, then you should be eager to pass away. Whether it be a hurricane, a car accident, this virus, you should be faithful and serving Jesus to the very end, if you want the eternal promises in the Word. Now, I'm observing many who claim that they are followers of Jesus, but they are frightened to the core of this virus, this global pandemic, they say, that cannot even be seen. And it's also had a lot of exaggerations in the numbers. And this invisible virus it's being used to jockey position in politics. Now, I may disagree with some of this man's doctrine, but I think Jerry Falwell took a stand for these students right up the road here in Lynchburg at Liberty to allow these young adults to make their own decision to return to school after spring break if they so choose. And beside from the theatrical stories on the nightly news, not everyone fears this virus that I believe is manipulated by man. Believers in Jesus, we believe in the invisible God. But we know that He knows our minds. We know that He knows our thoughts. Every way of man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the heart. We fear God. He is the judge. He weighs our heart. So if we're an imposter going out here acting like we don't fear, but internally we do, that's something we need to get in order in our house, isn't it? We just need not fear. Gosh. Let's read an example of faith by Moses in Hebrews 11, verses 26 to 27. Considering the reproach of Christ's greater riches than the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking to the reward. By faith he left Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing Him who is unseen. Seeing Him who was unseen. Moses saw who is invisible. We are called today to walk in God's steps of faith. And we have God's word with an enormous amount of examples from prophets and the apostles alike. Paul in Romans 4, he clarifies faith was credited to Abraham, his righteousness. How was it then credited to Abraham? While Abraham was circumcised, or was he uncircumcised? Well, not while he was circumcised per the Jewish law, but while old Abraham was uncircumcised. And he received the sign of circumcision, a seal, a branding, an identity of the righteousness of the authentic faith. That unshaking faith in God, the creator of the world. Abraham had an identity in the faith while uncircumcised, so that he might be the father of all who believe without being circumcised, as the Old Testament law keepers kept before Christ. They had to partake it as a sign, a trademark, if you will, is that they belonged to God and were his children. But now no more. But see, Abraham's extraordinary faith, as being uncircumcised, he became the model man, the patriarchal father to those not only of the circumcision, but also to those of these generational members of humanity that follow in step in the path of faith, which Abraham was an example of while he was uncircumcised. Now, I know to some of you this language may be foreign, but I have many lessons on circumcision in my playlist on the book of Galatians. There's half a dozen or so in there on circumcision. But this verse I just commented on in Romans 4 is Paul explaining that the descendants of Abraham would soon have a tabernacle within them to spiritually worship Jesus Christ with their being. No more to worship under law and chief priests, temples, and all the feast days and all that. They weren't necessary anymore. Not with Jesus. He's an internal tabernacle. And all these Christians today, they say they want to be a light shining bright in the darkness of this world today, right? Well, the scenario playing out globally right now, I will tell you now, will separate the slave servants to Jesus Christ from the imposter Christians that are secularly religious as a band-aid for their conscience. It's going to separate them. And fear, seeing fear, is one instinct you can tell if someone has faith in God or not. And faith, real faith, that faith that resides deep down in the bowels of your being, yeah, that faith is the conviction of things that aren't seen. You're not going to find that faith with your five senses. You're not going to smell it. You're not going to smell that faith or taste it. Your soul will have a keen sense of hearing and sight within your spirit. This faith right here that the child of God exhibits doesn't rely on man. It doesn't rely on what the governor or the president may say or regurgitate off reading a teleprompter. 9 times out of 10, these things are said from a carnal thought. A carnal thought of government and instincts by which they see. Things they see in the physical. So don't allow the media at large and these authority figures to contaminate your mind with secular hopes that they deem are credible. You know, there's a verse, I don't know, it's in Jeremiah chapter 6 or 7, when he was predicting trouble in Jerusalem and trouble with the temple. The Lord, through the prophet Jeremiah, told these people then to stand by the ways and see, and ask for the old paths where the good way is, and to walk in it. and you will find rest. You will find peace in your souls. Find that old simple path, those humble ways, and walk in it, friends. I'll find that verse and post it in the description. But it's something along those lines. Find those old paths. And of course, in Jeremiah's day, the people rejected God's law. God sent watchmen over the society, blaring the trumpet, and they refused those old ways. Listen, I know it's easier for me to sit here on this phone and say, don't fear. Don't fear. Don't get alarmed by the reports of the mobile morgues and the National Guard sightings. Don't fear the potential for outlaws to come after those under quarantine and rob them of their goods. Don't fear. It's easy. It's easy to say don't fear. I know that. I wish I could sit down at a picnic table with you and touch upon these matters face to face. I really wish that was possible. It saddens me to think of the joy that could be had in seeing you all. Ashley and Jack, Pastor Dickens, Judy, JR, you and the kids. But I reckon you can find encouragement in it now to not fear. Our only trust and truth is to be about our Father's business and His eternal, internal spirit. Not this theatrical spirit of this world. All these things we are hearing and seeing are frightening the flesh, and they are going against the grain of what God's Word says. We are to worship as you drive, as you walk, as you combine or cut the grass, even while some of you may be in quarantine. We are to meditate upon God's Word, to worship in the Spirit of God and glory and abound in comfort in Jesus, and put not one bit of safety or confidence in this old, aging, rotting flesh. Let's just end with this. And again, I'll put this verse in the description. It's found in Jeremiah. It was relevant then and is applicable today. We may say we don't fear, but God tests our mind. Not tempts, but God tests our mind. Our thoughts. And He gives humanity, at times, over to their ways. The heart of humanity is ill. It's sick. Our hearts have a virus and need to be reborn. Cursed is the man who trusts in mankind and makes the flesh his strength. And cursed is the man whose heart turns away from the Lord. So understand that we exist and live and move and have our daily being under every circumstance in Jesus. Don't allow the fear of all these unbelievers worldwide affect you more than this virus itself, which is nothing new. Now, this wisdom from Proverbs chapter 6 can apply to every period of life. So just keep this in mind while commerce is still delivered to and fro and the shelves are being replenished. Go to the ant, O sluggard, observe her ways and be wise, which having no ruler, having no chief, prepares her food in the summer and gathers her provision in the harvest. How long will you lie down, O sluggard? Till next time.